What is up, ladies and gentlemen? And you guys already know how fantastic Atlas Shrugged is. I remember when I was in my uh, search to see if there was anything worthwhile in college and found that there was nothing. The one thing that I probably did that was worthwhile was try to start a free speech club. And the people that joined there, even communists would join, and I would tell the communists, dude, we need you. We need the opposing viewpoint, right? We need a sandbag. but we need other people to spar with. You see what I'm saying? I encourage both discussing what they believe is true deep down, because that's the only way we can actually find out what's real, right? And so if no one has a monopoly on the conversation, right? And so this is characterized in Howard Roark's speech, right? What do you call it? Basically saying the individual above all else. But again, the original sense of the word individual is no me. Again, it's not about me. When I do the right thing, it's not about me. You can call it ego. You can call it this. You can call it that. But it's not about the ego. Yes, the ego might have its 10%, publishing company, writer role, right? Editor role. But after that 10% credit, so-called credit, it's not about me. It's about my work, because my work precedes me, right? And so it's these kinds of things that I think Howard Roark championed, and that I think everyone can benefit from. So let's share the screen. I gotta share sound, 1 second.
Thousands of years ago, the first man discovered how to make fire. He was probably burned at the stake he had taught his brothers to light, but he left them a gift they had not conceived, and he lifted darkness off the earth. Throughout the centuries, there were men who took first steps down new roads, armed with nothing but their own vision. The great creators, the thinkers, the artists, the scientists, the inventors, stood alone against the men of their time. Every new thought.
Okay, but we have to stop and talk about it a little bit, just because already so much he's saying, right? First man invented fire, and his friends probably killed him, and probably thought it was witchcraft, and probably thought he was, some devil, right? They probably thought he was some demon, because he was bringing some knowledge that they did not know. So of course, someone who's conditioned is immediately going to demonize this message and say it's, there's nothing to it. But later on, they'll find that the fire is useful, right? So he's saying that we have to be able to make these risks. And it's the same with Patrice O'Neill talking about how, censorship of like, I think at that time it was like rape jokes. But essentially what Patrice and what Joe Rogan now was saying is that, good and bad jokes come out of the same area, come out of the same unknown of thinking, perhaps this joke is good, perhaps this joke is not good, right? It won't get laughs, right? Won't break the ice. But again, we're only armed with our own vision. We're only armed by our own capacity to test what is right and wrong. So if you completely remove an ability of a man to test what is right and wrong, then again, that's wrong. That's just outright wrong. Because what you're saying is the man should compromise. And if the man compromises, what he do inevitably will be wrong. Does that make sense? So in this sense, a man must be able to go forth armed with his vision and his vision only. Just like Gandalf, just like Luke Skywalker, just like any masculine, image in these archetypes, they have to go. They have to do, and Howl's Moving Castle, which comes to mind for some reason, that guy, the masculine figure of it all, he had to go out there and fight his war or whatever it was, right? But this is the thing. We have to be able to inquire into the unknown, only armed with our own vision, only armed with our own fire, only armed with our own light. We have to, this is why Krishnamurti says you have to be a light to yourself. not out of any selfish reason, not out of any exploitative reason, but just because it's the only right thing to do, right? So let's keep going.
Thought was opposed. Every new invention was denounced. But the men of unborrowed vision went ahead.
So again, every single new thought, every single new innovation, every single new idea, of course, was going to be denounced, because who is doing the denouncing? All the people that don't want to entertain a new thought, right? All the people that don't want to, how do you say, be open to a new idea, right? So it's these kinds of things. Also, let's see. You also said unborrowed vision, right? Because that's the only way something can be original, authentic, and new, if it is unborrowed. But everyone is so concerned with borrowing or lending. You see what I'm saying? That you have to only use what I lend you. That's impossible, because if I only use what other people lend me, then I can't make anything for myself. And this is in a psychological sense. Of course, someone can lend me their computer, right? Of course, someone can lend me a physical object. That's fine. But the point is, there's an intellectual property thing here, right? And not that we should have all this copyright and all this bullshit, but at the same time, there's something in me that should not be regulated by any music industry, by any whatever industry, right? I should be able to be free of a middleman that edits my work, that says something I didn't say, right? So in that sense, again, I have to go forth and risk it all, because if I don't risk making a mistake, I will do nothing great in my life. So we all have to be able to make mistakes, and we have to see that mistakes is the essence of what it means to be an individual. Because if you were not able to find what it means, if you were not able to see what it means to be divided, you would not see what it means to be whole. So if someone limits and controls your ability to go and see what is division, right, to confront that in yourselves, then you're already divided. Then you're already not one. Then you're already not whole. You're already not looking. And this is what Roark is saying. I have to look. Just like Bugs in Matrix, even though the general didn't want her to look, she had to look. Why? Because it's the only thing life can do, is look clearly. Look with honesty. That's it.
They fought, they suffered, and they paid, but they won. No creator was prompted by a desire to please his brothers. His brothers hated the gift he offered. His truth was...
No creator was trying to, right, receive benefit. All his brothers hated what he created. All his brothers hated what he had to offer, right? Because no one knew how to receive this offering. Again, because it's unknown. So it's completely understandable that the sisters in your family near you won't see you for who you are, because they're seeing you attached to that image. They're seeing the messenger, not the message. You see what I'm saying? And so, of course, no wrongdoing on their part. But again, if there was someone to receive this message, how beautiful would that be? That is heaven on earth. So this is Howard Roark's time, where he's twisting or he's turning the tables, and now the tide is changing, because now the one who could not speak for himself is speaking for himself at the end, right? So it's these kinds of things.
Was his only motive. His work was his only goal. His work, not those who used it. His creation, not the benefits others derived from it. The creation which gave form to his truth.
So if you examine carefully, what he's saying is the creator didn't even care about the effect. The creator was just concerned about his work, about creation. That's it. Because it was a selfless thing. It wasn't thinking, I'm trying to profit off of something, right? And so that's exactly what needs to be understood here. And he's going to say this, that every man has a right to live for himself, which doesn't mean I'm going to profit off of others. However, it does mean that I am still a body. I am still a thought. I am still these things. I am still the memory, right? So there's a place in work. And then, of course, there's the rest. And you all know that. We explained that clearly, that there's thought and then there's no thought. But again, the ability to work for oneself, every man is worthy of his hire or his labor or whatever this thing it is in the maxims, right? And that basically your work is yours only. It can't be taxed because that would be stolen work, right? So in this sense, in this thought working activity, masculine sense, every man has a right to only be concerned with his work and not to make his work compromised to anyone else's work. And that's why two men or other men have to come together and again, be able to work on their own thing, but at the same time work together and have these working on their own thing not be a point of division. So I can't be jealous if Justin has something that's profound, that's so amazing, or Raji has something so amazing to say, or Charlie or Agua or Josh or Santos or whatever has something so amazing to say, because that's his work, right? And then again, his work, like how do I say? There needs to stop being this sense of comparison. Oh, he's doing too much right now, or he's doing too little right now. All of this is processes of comparison and looking at the effect. We all need to be able to just focus on the cause and the source and really nothing else. And it's not even a focus, right? Howard Roark is just saying, what's natural I need to do because I know it's right in my heart. And if I didn't do what was natural, it would be compromising, right?
He held his truth above all things and against all men. He went ahead, whether others agreed with him or not, with his integrity as his only banner. He served nothing and no one.
He served nothing and no one. Precisely. Wow, that's the ultimate authority. There's no authority. There's no one, right? Because that's the only person I really bow down to is no one. I bow down to him, no one. So it's this kind of a thing. And then, moving forth without need for validation, because it's the need for validation that, makes us not be integral, not be integrated, right? Because we're trying to put on a mask for someone, right? And so when you're integrated, you don't have to be someone else. You can just be comfortable being you, and that's it. You see what I'm saying? And there would be no, serving, because I wouldn't be serving anyone, right? And not serving anyone, I will do you the most good, indirectly, right? Because if I serve someone and I was in servitude, then I can't do you any good. So it's these kinds of things.
He lived for himself. And only by living for himself was he able to achieve the things which are the glory of mankind. Such is the nature of achievement. Man cannot survive except through his mind. He comes on earth unarmed. His brain is his only weapon. But the mind is an attribute of the individual. There is no such thing as a collective brain.
In other words, you have to see for yourself. No one can see for you. That's all we really have is perception. And I think I'll go one step further to say that true perception is not had by anyone. True perception is not had by anyone. Meaning that real perception is not a matter of someone. That when the idea of clarity and to be clear, if the subject matter is clear, it's not about someone. It's not subjective. It's objectively clear, right? So in this sense, really perception, again, you can call it ego, but when one person sees clearly, it defies all labels of ego. It defies all labels, period. That's a better way to put it. And so in this sense, again, all we are armed with is our minds, right? And really, again, I'll push further to say, it's only our own responsibility to disarm our own perception, our own false perception, our own biased perception. That's up to us to do. No one else can filter your bias, because if someone else tried to do that, then it would develop this division between what you think is bias and what this other person thinks is bias. You see? And so this is the thing. So there can't be this, how do you say, this contradiction of one person, like your parent, like maybe one parent says one thing and another parent says the completely opposite thing, whatever it is, right? No, you can't depend on someone else to look for you. So this is, again, so important that perception is all we have, really. And then if you go further, it's what you don't have, right? Because you let go of the shells, you let go of the clutter that's stopping you from seeing clearly. So these things.
The man who thinks must think and act on his own. The reasoning mind cannot work under any form of compulsion. It cannot.
Perception cannot be, there can be nothing perceived if there's any sense of control or authority on the perception. When there's no control or authority on the perception, one can see clearly without compulsion. Without compulsivity.
Subordinated to the needs, opinions, or wishes of others. It is not an object of sacrifice. The Creator stands on his own judgment. The parasite follows the opinions of others.
Amen. So again, the Creator stands on his own judgment. The parasite follows the opinions of others, right? Doesn't mean you have to be numb to the opinions of others, but it has to mean that basically you can't be swayed. You can't change who you are naturally, inherently, deep down, based on what someone else wants you to be. Because the moment that happens, the moment you sway, depending on what other people have to say, other opinions and emotional structures about you, then again, you're compromising to a society and you're lying to yourself. And you're living an unintegrated life. So it's these kinds of things. Let's keep going.
Thinks. The parasite copies. The Creator produces. The parasite loots. The Creator's concern is the conquest of nature. The parasite's concern is the conquest of man.
Wow. And that is Dr. Sebi summed up in a nutshell, right? The parasite is concerned with the conquest of man. And the Creator is concerned with the conquest of nature. How powerful is that? And the parasite only feeds off of the work man does, because what nature does, the parasite can't feed off of. Because the parasite's realm is the artificial realm. So what is original and organic is nature. So of course it is our duty to conquest nature. To conquest in a natural fashion, to inquire in a natural form. Because the moment it is unnatural and it is forced by an opinion of another, it is a parasite. So a natural form must be done in an authentic, non-compulsive, non-forced, non-coerced environment. And there could be coercion and duress going on, but even if it's going on within the mind, psychologically speaking, there can't be any sense of conforming, any sense of really non-individuality. So individuality means non-conforming, right? It means nature. It means what's natural. It means natural law. I don't see my ego as separate from nature. You see what I'm saying? The moment I see my ego separate from nature, I develop all these ideas of higher self, lower self, Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva, all these things. And these are all great, but the ego likes to hide in concepts. Right? So when the ego is not hiding, it's just doing what's natural. And it has no choice. Okay?
Creator requires independence.
Let me share first. So parasite conquests man's whatever, right? Whatever man's doing, that's what the parasite's involved with. Whatever nature's doing, that's what a creator is involved with.
The parasite's concern is the conquest of men. The creator requires independence. He neither serves nor rules. He deals with men by free exchange and voluntary choice. The parasite seeks power. He wants to bind all men together in common action and common slavery. He claims that man is only a tool for the use of others, that he must think as they think, act as they act, and live in selfless, joyless servitude to any need but his own. Look at his...
Wow. To live in servitude to any need but his own. Isn't that amazing? Isn't that amazing? That we think this compromising to society is something that is something that is, what do you call it? Ethical, something that is moral, something that is just, something that is respectable. And the best example I can give you is a doctor, right? So much sacrifice, so much effort, so much struggle, so much suffering gone through in school and peer pressure and dealing with other doctors, because it's like the military, right? Like the generals give you a tough time and all this kind of stuff, like the higher doctors and whatever. But really, not even serving yourself was the beginning of disrespecting yourself, not loving yourself. Just like when Sebi says, you have to love yourself to love another. Because if you don't love yourself, yourself will get in the way of loving another. Because the idea of yourself will be so emphasized, so overgrown, right? So in the way of clarity, right? That if you were just clear of the self, right? Then you would love yourself and then you would love another, because you'd realize another is yourself. That is the true sense of individual again. That individable, that me being me means that you are me. So again, seeing the differences, the small 10% so-called differences as really underlying unity. We see the world so different. We create so many differences. When in reality, we all, again, common sense implies, individuality implies deep down what's true is true. And no one can tell you that. The moment someone dictates and tells you that, that's where the confusion begins.
History. Everything we have, every great achievement has come from the independent work of some independent mind. Every horror and destruction came from attempts to force men into a herd of brainless, soulless robots.
So what did he just say? He just said there's individual minds and then there's groupthink. And every horror comes from groupthink. Every horror comes from democracy. Every horror comes from this idea that I can't be and act for myself. So again, this needs to be championed at the same time. That when I say I act for myself and I love myself, it's not a selfish thing. We don't exaggerate this into a selfish thing, but it means a respect for myself, and in respecting myself, I respect another. That having a fence sometimes, is better, is more suited to have this boundaryless lifestyle, right? Like, I mean, that's a little counterintuitive, but I'll give you an example. It's kind of like, if you have a fence and the other person gives you the permission to jump the fence, then again, the boundary is really not a boundary at all. But again, like for instance, right now, where MS-13 is going into America like crazy with all these fentanyl, with all the guns and everything like this, right? In this sense, it is more unethical not to have that fence, not to have that independent, slow arising, authentic, organic, original, source thought or source decision. So this is the thing. So again, the self is the other. The self is the world. The self is the group. However, when the self confuses itself, it identifies with groupthink. So it identifies with something that is inorganic, that isn't arising naturally. So this is what we have to consider. Or give me 1 second.